The Ancient Book of Enoch is a book that was quite popular during the first 700 years of church history, but then faded from sight. Nobody republished it. It disappeared.
Minutes ago, researchers discovered an ancient inscription from the Book of Psalms in the Judean desert. Other historical figures like Asaph, the sons of Korah, Solomon, and even Moses added their own pieces. These psalms were not just read, temple choirs sang them, and after surviving the harsh times of the Babylonian exile, they were organized into the powerful book we know today. What secrets might lie within the ancient inscription found in the Judean desert? Nobody can believe what secrets these timeless words might reveal. Tracing the echoes of the Psalms. The Book of Psalms is a collection of 150 ancient Hebrew poems, songs, and prayers from different times in Israel's history. Out of these, 73 are credited to King David, who wasn't just a king, but also a talented poet and musician. However, David didn't write all of them. Other writers like Asaph, the sons of Korah, and temple leaders contributed as well. Even Solomon and Moses wrote some of them. Interestingly, about 1/3 of the poems don't have an author mentioned. As scholars delve deeper into the mysteries of the Psalms, they discover hidden marks and symbols suggesting that some poems might contain secrets about the lost Ark of the Covenant. These poems were often sung by temple choirs in Israel, but the Book of Psalms wasn't just made to be a collection of songs. After the Babylonian exile, these writings were carefully organized into what we now know as the Book of Psalms. The way the book is structured and its overall message becomes clear when you read it from start to finish. A good way to understand how the Book of Psalms is organized is by looking at its ending. The book finishes with 5 joyful poems that praise the God of Israel. Each of these 5 poems begins and ends with Hallelujah, which is a Hebrew word that tells people to praise Yah, a short form of Yahweh, God's name. This 5-part conclusion suggests that the book was intentionally put together in a specific way. If you look closely at the titles of the poems, you'll notice labels like Book 1, Book 2, and so on all the way to Book 5. This shows that the Psalms are divided into 5 sections. At the end of each section, there's usually a blessing that says something like, "May the Lord, the God of Israel, be blessed forever and ever, amen and amen." This pattern points to the idea that the book was carefully designed and structured, but that's not the most surprising part. If we go back to the beginning of the book to look for some kind of introduction, we find Psalms 1 and 2. These 2 poems are different from the first section, which is mostly linked to David because they don't name an author. Psalm 1 talks about how blessed a person is when they follow the Torah, God's teachings, day and night. Here, Torah doesn't just refer to the 5 books of Moses, but a broader concept of teaching. This might be why the Book of Psalms is divided into 5 parts, like a new Torah, guiding people in prayer and obedience to God's ways. Following that, Psalm 2 reflects on God's promise to David in 2 Samuel chapter 7 about a future messianic king who will establish an everlasting kingdom. God's reign extends across the whole world, overcoming evil and resistance among nations. As we come to the end of Psalm 2, we learn that anyone who seeks safety in the Messianic King will find true happiness. This idea echoes the beginning of Psalm 1. Together, these 2 verses set the stage for the Book of Psalms, which is a collection of prayers for God's followers. These followers aim to obey the teachings of the Torah while they look forward to the coming of the Messianic rule. With this in mind, the structure of the smaller collections within the Psalms becomes clearer. Each group of Psalms reflects these main ideas. For example, the first collection, from Psalms 15 to 24, begins and ends with calls to remain faithful to God's covenant. Between Psalms 16 and 18, David becomes an example of loyalty. He asks God for help, and God answers by raising him to kingship. After that, Psalms 20 to 23 show David as a symbol of the future Messianic king who also seeks God's help and is given power over nations. Let's explore more about the kings and prophets in the next chapter. The terrifying rule. In the middle of this group is Psalm 19, which praises the Torah. This ties back to the ideas in Psalms 1 and 2. The second book of Psalms begins with 2 poems about returning to the temple in Zion. The temple is a key symbol of the future messianic reign. This book ends with a powerful image of the future ruler's worldwide reign. This theme is common in the prophets' visions of the messianic era, focusing on God's promise to bless all nations through Abraham. But this isn't the hardest part. In Book 3, we find a verse reflecting on God's promise to David, written during Israel's exile. The poet remembers God's assurance that David's line would continue, even in the midst of destruction and exile caused by Israel's disobedience. This leads to a heartfelt plea for God to remember his commitment to David. In response to this crisis, Book 4 begins by connecting back to the prayers of Moses. It reminds us of Moses' prayers during the crisis of the golden calf at Mount Sinai, where he asked for God's mercy. The central poems in this book declare that the Lord, the God of Israel, is the true king. They call on all creation, trees, mountains, and rivers to celebrate the coming day when God will establish his just rule over the entire world. Book 5 starts with poems that remind us that God hears the prayers of his people. These poems also speak of a future king who will defeat evil and secure God's rule. This final book assures us of God's unchanging promise to hear and save his people. It promises a ruler who will eventually defeat all opposition and govern with God's divine authority. There are two main groups of poems in this book, one called Hallel and the other Songs of Ascent. Both of these groups end with a poem about a future kingdom led by the Messiah. This gives readers hope for a miraculous rescue, much like the Exodus in the past. In between these two collections is Psalm 119, the longest poem in the book. It's special because each line starts with a different letter of the Hebrew alphabet in order. This poem reflects on the beauty and blessing of the Torah, which is seen as God's direct message to his people. The themes of the Torah and the Messiah introduced in the first two Psalms come together again in the fifth part of the book, leading to a final set of 5 poems. One of the most important poems here is Psalm 148, where all of nature is invited to praise the God of Israel. This is because he has raised up a horn for his people, which is a symbol of victory, much like a bull's horn. This imagery of triumph connects to other parts of the Bible, such as Hannah's song in Psalm 132, where it also stands for the future king's victory over evil. This helps bring the entire collection of poems to a powerful conclusion. Most of the poems in this book can be put into 2 groups, laments and praises. Laments express the poet's sadness, confusion, and frustration with the world's pain and suffering, asking God to step in and help. These kinds of poems are more common in the earlier parts of the book, showing that it's okay to feel sorrow in the face of evil. On the other hand, praises are poems that focus on joy, thankfulness, and celebrating the good things in life and what God has done. As you move through the book, praises become more frequent, and by the end, there's a joyful finish. Moving on, we see how sorrow turns to joy in the next chapter. Discoveries from the Judean desert? But that's not the whole story. This shift from lament to praise is important. It reflects a change in how people pray and believe, showing a movement toward hope and faith in a future messianic kingdom. It teaches us to balance the tough parts of life with a belief in better things to come, reminding us that even while we struggle now, we can look forward to God's promises. In Jerusalem, recent excavations in the Judean desert have uncovered some of the most important archaeological discoveries since the famous Dead Sea Scrolls. We're going to take a look at history by exploring the original village of Mary Magdalene, and we'll walk along an ancient path that was often traveled during biblical times. In 2017, Israeli archaeologists began a major study of the Judean desert. They worked on this project for 4 years, led by the Israel Antiquities Authority. The goal was to protect important historical items from being stolen. Part of this involved going down over 200 feet into one of the main caves. Inside the cave, archaeologists carefully dug through soil that had not been touched for nearly 2,000 years. Their work uncovered ancient items, including fragments of scrolls that are almost 2,000 years old. Afterward, they climbed back up the cliffs, bringing these treasures to the Israel Museum. One of the most significant finds included scrolls from the books of Zechariah and Nahum. This marked the first discovery of biblical scrolls in the Judean desert in nearly 60 years. These scrolls were likely brought to the cave by Jews who were running from Roman forces in 70 AD. They probably chose to bring these scrolls because they were so important to them. But that's not all. Another expert said, "This discovery tells us how strong their faith was in such difficult times. These texts must have brought them comfort during their struggles." But that's not the only incredible discovery. The team also found the remains of a 6,000-year-old child in a basket that was perfectly preserved. When they tested the basket, they were amazed to find out it was about 10,500 years old. This is not only a unique find in Israel, but possibly in the whole world. The dig also uncovered coins from the Bar Kokhba revolt. These coins had markings that mentioned King David and King Solomon. These coins from the time of Jerusalem's fall in 70 AD tell a story of not just Jewish history, but also of human strength and culture. But this wasn't the end of their discoveries. As this project in the Judean desert comes to a close, archaeologists believe that many of the hundreds of remaining caves may still hold more ancient scrolls and artifacts. Next, we travel to Galilee, where history comes alive. Exposing the sacred north. Now let's shift our focus to northern Israel. There's been an exciting discovery in Galilee, a 1st century Jewish synagogue in a town believed to be the home of Mary Magdalene. Scott Ross takes us through the importance of this find in Magdala, which is located on the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. Magdala is an important place for both Jewish and Christian history and is famously known for being the home of Mary of Magdala, a significant figure in early Christian discipleship. In 2005, Father Juan Solana started the Magdala Project to highlight the life of Jesus and honor women of faith. They began digging in 2009, and what they found was incredible. Father Evan Kelly described it as something that felt meant to be. They bought land in Magdala, not just any land, but right by the Sea of Galilee. Their hope was to dig without running into costly archaeological finds, but if they did find something, they wanted it to be meaningful. As they continued digging, they made an amazing discovery, a 1st century synagogue. Inside this synagogue, as Father Kelly explained, was a large room with 2 rows of seats in the center and another set of seats along the walls. This was no ordinary house. It was a beautiful community space decorated with mosaics and frescoes. At first, the mosaics were thought to have just 3 colors, but now experts say there are actually 26 different shades. Some designs even match patterns found in the temple in Jerusalem. At the center of the site, they uncovered the Magdala stone, found in the same spot where it was left centuries ago. Today, replicas stand in its place, but archaeologists see the original as highly important, almost as important as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Avian, one of the archaeologists, suggests the Magdala stone might represent the Second Temple during Jesus' time. The stone is carved with symbols like the menorah and the golden altar, offering a glimpse into the Holy of Holies, shown in a symbolic way since it wasn't allowed to show divine figures directly. The archaeological site in Magdala provides a deep look into the time of Jesus. While there's no hard proof that Jesus visited Magdala, Father Kelly believes the evidence suggests it's very possible. Visitors often ask if Jesus actually stood in this synagogue. While there's no record confirming it, Jesus was very active in Galilee, and Magdala was on his path from Nazareth to Capernaum. The Duke Alatham Center in Magdala has become a spiritual place for many faiths. Its name comes from the story where Jesus tells Peter to go into deeper waters. The atrium honors Jewish women who followed Jesus, and their images are shown in the mosaics of 4 smaller chapels. The boat chapel has a special altar shaped like a boat, and it faces the Sea of Galilee, creating a feeling of Jesus preaching again. Downstairs, the encounter chapel offers a space of hope. Father Kelly believes that healing is happening here between Christians and Jews. There's even part of an ancient street preserved where fishermen from that time would have walked. If Jesus came to Magdala, he probably walked this street more than he went to the synagogue. Scott, a volunteer visiting the Holy Land for the first time, found himself in a situation far different from what he had imagined. What he thought Israel would be like turned out to be quite different from the reality he experienced. His journey began at a newly opened guest house for pilgrims, which added even more surprise to his trip. This guest house wasn't just a place to stay, it was meant to be a space for people to connect and learn from each other in the future. Now, let's see how past discoveries are connecting people today. Rediscovering ancient roads. The guest house had been changed several times because of archaeological discoveries that were made at the site. These finds, including an ancient synagogue, made the location even more special. The discovery of the synagogue brought more attention to Jewish and Christian conversations, helping people from both faiths learn more about each other. The place became a symbol of unity, where differences were set aside and people from all beliefs could come together in a meaningful way. At the same time, news reports from CBN talked about an ancient road that had been found. This road, once walked by pilgrims many years ago, was now available for modern visitors to explore. But the news didn't just focus on these discoveries from the past. It also highlighted how Israel is growing today through things like technological innovations and the humanitarian work done by Israeli volunteers around the world. These stories aim to show a more complete picture of Israel, both its past and present. But this wasn't just about looking back at history, it was also about connecting the past with the present. Old roads that had been hidden for so long were being opened again, allowing people to walk where their ancestors once did. This gave them a deeper understanding of the spiritual and historical significance of Jerusalem and other important sites. Walking these ancient paths helped visitors feel more connected to the land and its rich history. About 2,000 years ago, during important religious festivals, over 2 million people would travel to the Temple Mount, a key place for worship and spiritual gatherings. The historian Josephus wrote about these large crowds, showing how big these events were. The people on their spiritual journey needed places to perform ritual washing. One of these places was the Pool of Siloam, which is also mentioned in the Bible as the spot where Jesus healed a blind man, as told in the book of John. For a long time, no one knew the exact location of this pool. It was hidden under a road until about 15 years ago, when a sewage leak led to archaeological digging. These digs didn't just find the pool, they also gave historians a better understanding of ancient rituals and what the area looked like back then. Archaeologists were even able to figure out exactly where the ancient temple stood. As the project continued, researchers wanted to map out the path pilgrims followed from the Pool of Siloam to the Temple Mount. Zev Oren from the City of David Foundation explained how this work led to the discovery of the old pilgrimage road. This road, made of stones laid 2,000 years ago, was the very same one that historical figures like Jesus would have walked on to reach the temple. But uncovering this road did more than just reveal history. It also allowed people today to experience the same journey. Now, visitors can walk from the Pool of Siloam to the Western Wall, experiencing the same path pilgrims took centuries ago. The road gently rises, taking you up to the Temple Mount, a walk full of historical and religious meaning. But the road wasn't just a simple path, it was a busy place where people would meet, buy, and sell goods. Like a marketplace, it was lined with shops and stalls to serve the many pilgrims making the journey. According to the Israel Antiquities Authority, this road was built between 20 and 30 AD, overseen by Pontius Pilate. It took about 10 years to finish. Now, excavating a site in a crowded and historically rich city like Jerusalem isn't easy. Ari Levy, the manager of the dig, pointed out how careful engineering was needed to protect modern buildings while carefully uncovering each part of the ancient road. The work is slow and careful, balancing the needs of the modern city with the desire to uncover its ancient history. However, finding and preserving the road is just part of the story. Some sections of the road are still in good condition, while others show signs of destruction, reminding us of the many conflicts Jerusalem has seen. For example, archaeologists found coins from the Great Jewish Revolt, minted just before the Romans conquered the city in 70 AD. These coins show how the people of Jerusalem held on to hope and identity even as they faced great challenges. What do you think are the implications of uncovering such artifacts in modern cities? Comment and subscribe for more.